What's going on, Workforce? Brian and Chris here, and today we're talking about the changes to tanks. This is what do you want to know about tanks, what we thought about the tanks of Endwalker, and it's all going to be pretty exciting. Just a few notes for you guys. The footage that you see is pre-development. It has not gone under the final adjustments, and anything can change. It's critical. Also, Yoshi P, he really did a heartfelt shout out to all the medical workers out there fighting through this pandemic with a special thank you. We want to echo his words and a thank you to that. Now, after this video, guys, we've got links in the description. We've got Chris live over on Twitch, so you can go hang out with him. You can break down any of the things we say, ask him any questions. He's got footage to review with you. He's got thoughts of his own. It's going to be a really good time. So be sure to go follow him over there, and also check out Ginger Prime Gaming Kinda, Ginger Gaming Radio, and you're already right here at Work to Game. So guys, hopefully you guys enjoy. We do apologize for the feed overload, but hopefully we've made it up by not having too much content for you guys, and you're just hopefully ready for it. So Chris, Warrior, Gunbreaker, Dark Knight, and Paladin. What, in your honest opinion, not story of Shadowbringers, told me the story of the Warrior, like what do you think stood out the most to you overall with the tanks? Do you feel that Warrior kind of like leveled it up in a new way, or are you like keen on like Paladin? What is it? Because we saw obviously from the job action trailer a lot, but we actually went hands-on. We went with the tooltips. What are you thinking?
So I think Dark Knight and Gunbreaker are going to mature across the expansion. As the skills level up, you get that third cartridge later on. As that all moves forward, by the time you hit level 90, they will really feel like extensions of themselves from Shadowbringers. There's a lot of quality of life in the Salted Earth, and kind of you're placing this bomb to detonate at your own. There's a lot that feels really good there.
Yeah.
Warrior feels like it just got let loose. Like it feels like you're just infuriating all the time, and you're choosing when to interrelease. Like it feels chaotic, berserk, keep up healer, let's go. And I'm enjoying that. And I would have played Warrior pre this event unless they deleted my Soulstone. Like that was happening. Yeah. But I will say in this video, and probably never repeat it after, because these are terrible words for a Warrior main, I totally understand why there will be Paladin mains in Endwalker. That's the first you're hearing me saying it. It'll be the last you hear me say it. I get it. I get it. Paladin feels good. It does. It looks good in the gear. Taking screenshots of it. It looks sharp. It feels sharp. In many people claimed Dark Knight was like the big winner going into Shadowbringers, and like I liked it, but it didn't feel like it surpassed Warrior in any way, even though it was the cover. You know, it was the cover art. Paladin is the cover art, and it feels like it brought the job changes to match. I
want to praise Warrior. I honestly felt like it was beastly. It was like it was visceral. Like it felt like it had weight to it with how the abilities were restructured. In our overview video, you talked about just the homogenization in terms of the gap closer. And at the end of the day, though, I felt exactly like I hear your complaint there. I felt that if somebody feels like that, if someone echoes that note, that there is so much that offsets that to where I think that if you mained Warrior in Shadowbringers, you're going to fall in love with it all over again, and it's not asking you to go back to like, you know, elementary school on the job. It just feels like a natural extension. But the abilities, like I don't even know if maybe like the sound was updated in some ways, because it just, for me, like it was very, I don't know, I was just very in tune with how all of it kind of just connected together, especially the Storm's Path, like just the buff alone, starting whether you're doing AoEs, you're doing single target. It just felt like you weren't having to like, it was just go and be hungry and powerful and just like dominate the experience. And then, oh, don't worry about it, I got self heals, right? Like da 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 da. So Warrior felt really, really impressive to me. And it was the last tank I played. So from my like tank journey, like I opened up with I believe Paladin, and then I went to Dark Knight, and then I went to Gunbreaker, and then I finished with Warrior. And I really wasn't impressed with Warrior coming out of the Shadowbringers media tour, and I wasn't Warrior main in Stormblood, and so when I went into Shadowbringers, I was like, I wasn't that impressed with what they were doing, and I ended up being more of a Gunbreaker Dark Knight main in Shadowbringers. And now I'm coming in here, and unfortunately, like I'm not trying to be negative here, I'm speaking as the controller guy, they made some really good adjustments with Confiteor and Paladin. However, there's still so much busyness in terms of like positional. I'm going to have to put, just like we're going to hear in the healing video, I'm going to have to put a lot of work in trying to make sure that I can get Paladin to feel really comfortable on a controller because of how, and it's really all it breaks down to is that when you go into your magic rotation with Holy, it's mobile, right? And if you're standing still, there's actually not a problem. But we know for a fact, playing the dungeons, and this game's got a lot of movement, and it's just going to be something that I'm going to have to put a little extra time into it. Hopefully I can get that, really well done. But just note, if you're using my 80 guide, I think my 91 is going to be very different in order to try and accommodate the things that I wish they did with Paladin. And it's one of it is that Atonement, it's still on its own button. And then they go and give us another really cool skill that I wanted to put where Atonement is. So there's things I've got to work on. And again, I don't think the media tour was enough time. I wanted to spend more time on it. So but I'm just giving you guys my raw impressions of walking away going like, yes. Oh, so close. And that's my review of Paladin.
I mean, so any footage I use of mine is clumsy because we're on borrowed characters. You're on a limited time schedule. So you're laying out your abilities as fast as you can. And so like the mitigation side of it, I just called suboptimal and just said, I'll just deal with that later.
Yeah.
Mitigation is not something that typically comes to play in normal content to the same degree. It's a courtesy for your healers. And so if you're popping any mitigation, that's the right mitigation for normal at first. And then that's something you optimize as you get better. So I just dragged all my mitigation onto one bar to save time. Even mitigation that we've had before, I didn't worry about trying to put it in the right spot. I just dragged them all to one bar and focused on rotation. So that I could get my DPS in spot so that we could get into the content. And so like I felt clumsy. I can tell that even on Warrior, I'm going to have to go through and see it because I could feel myself refreshing Storm's Eye too often. I could feel myself, especially on AoE rotations. It felt odd that you open up with this cone to circle. And it's not like, I couldn't tell from the live letter, was it going to be cone to circle to Storm's Eye to cone to circle, cone, circle, cone, circle? No, it's just straight into cone, circle. And you're good to go. And when you pair that with the amount of decimates going out, when you pair that with how often inner release is, like it is an absolutely chaotic amount of damage coming out of a warrior. It feels really good.
What really felt good to me on the warrior, back to that, like, man, I'm really pro warrior right now, was that also the stacks, when you go into that, they are actually stacks. They're not a time-based situation. So if you end up having, a boss mechanic invulnerable, you're not going to like, okay, cool, I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to kick this right back up as soon as it becomes available. And I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that.
If you have to bail and you want a tomahawk, you're not wasting
that
now
time.
If you were to use a third-party abacus of some sort and export out to a website that could help you do a better job counting than you can, theoretically, it might tell you that you put abilities inside your inner release that shouldn't have been there. Now it's like, no, my inner release is specifically earmarked. And so if I want to use my 3 fell cleaves, I can use my 3 fell cleaves. So I can back out and tomahawk away, and I've just got that timer ticking down on my inner release. I just got to be back in time to use my 3 fell cleaves that are assigned to it. Meanwhile, I'm also building up gauge really fast for how quickly inner release comes back. And I've got my free gauge, and I've got my additional inner release ability that I'm drawing a blank on now, my big super ability. That just, it looks like an atomic bomb came out of an axe. It's just, it's awesome. Sometimes in dungeons, warrior feels really repetitive. And so it makes me not want to run dungeons on my main because I enjoy the trial and the raid so much that I end up not wanting to run dungeons on my main. Now, thankfully, this expansion in Shadowbringers, I can grind my warrior relic on any class I want. I can grind the tomes I need from my warrior on any class I want. So like if I want to run a level 80 dungeon and I don't want to run a warrior, I just don't. But I don't see how I go off my warrior anytime I get the chance.
So one of the things I have to do in Shadowbringers with Gunbreaker is do a macro. And I know for the Ultimate and Savage Raiders, like that's a big no-no. For me, it actually improved. For me, it actually improved my DPS because it was just like you ended up having with continuation, like just how do you do it? You called it button breaker, and it just became to the point where this actually is like, hey, this actually makes me more optimal, even though macros are a DPS loss. And so for me though, I enjoyed it in normal content, never an issue. So they have now made continuation and then made the Gnashing Fang be able to go and automatically upgrade. And that's actually one of the things that I've really been hoping to see in terms, especially for controller players, is like let certain abilities just go ahead and evolve. And Gunbreaker brought that. They brought that in spades, and I really actually appreciated that. Now I want to be able to put some time into making sure I can get that to really function the way I want, because it can get really fast. And whenever you're doing, you know, kind of movement on a controller player, like you're going to want to keep to the ABXY to be able to have your movement skills, so that if you have to use, like, you're not end up like holding the controller in a weird spot. It's just it's a factor for controller players that I always try to put into practice of like, oh, if you need to move, you need to make sure that you're not having to break your thumb to be able to hit this ability. Otherwise you're going to have a bigger DPS loss than you know it. But I appreciated that. And that's what kind of tying in. I was like, I wish that we saw that more on the Paladin. They do have it with Confettier, but I was hoping that we would see it with other abilities that actually, and as a preview, I thought Black Mage did amazing, and Red Mage, holy freaking crap. Stay tuned to the caster video for more on that. Posted here probably within the hour for you guys, so be sure to hit that bell. That's all I'm going to say on that one. All right, so we talked about Paladin, we talked about Gunbreaker. Yeah, go ahead.
So the 3 cartridges almost feels like too much of a good thing. It gets hard to manage. They're fast, especially when you have the ability to pile 2 cartridges on, but then you also now have an ability that can burn 2.
Yeah. Oh,
and so you want to keep that on cooldown, and you want to keep Gnashing Fang on cooldown.
Yeah.
And then you have an AoE and a single cartridge burn for when both those are on cooldown.
Yep.
And so you are getting, it feels like you're getting cartridges really rapidly, and that you can build up to 3. But then it feels like you're even hungrier for cartridges than ever before.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, I have more cartridges. And you're just nom, all the cartridges. Felt really good, felt really natural to have the Gnashing Fang combo. The Gnashing Fang, then its next ability, then Continuum, back. So it's 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Meanwhile, you're balancing your other off globals. I actually think that it made it so much easier to balance those, that I could put them on keys that felt good with movement, and I felt like I could be more mobile while maintaining that combo. And Button Breaker is one of the few jobs that I find myself only able to single weave. And so I have to do my off globals, an ability off, an ability off, an ability off, so that I have the ability to continue moving out of things. I actually caught myself double weaving, which is something I don't usually get to do. And that's when we were doing this on a streaming client, where like latency was not, like we were putting an extra layer of latency between us and the server. I felt great. So I think that the quality of life on Button Breaker, like, it might actually get its name back in my mind. It might actually be a Gunbreaker now, or just, but it's cartridge hungry. It's cartridge hungry. You're getting 3 of them.
Oh yeah.
But you 3's not enough. Like you want 3's
not enough, but it feels so much better than 2. 3's not enough, but it feels so much better than 2. And I was like, oh yeah. So Gunbreaker has me really excited to spend more time with it. I'm definitely more keen on that right now. Maybe that's because I've really been enjoying it in Shadowbringers. And this upgrade, I think, has me delete that macro. Like, I think this upgrade alone says, great, this macro is no longer needed. And I think that's something that's going to be a big perk in how it all plays out together. And I love the fact that also continuation builds off of blasting slasher. I have no idea why I'm drawing a blank on it, but
your non-Gnashing Fang combo ends in another continuation now. So the total combo got longer, but the number of abilities used to get there got lower, and it feels really good. Speaking of deleting macros, I will now get a macro slot back for Salted Earth.
Yes, you will.
Based on target.
Dark Knight, something Dark Knight, which I have to say has the coolest ability ever introduced in a video game with their level 90 ability, Shadowbringer. I was like, oh man, Shadowbringer at level 90, freaking amazing. Honestly, well done. Bravo, Square Enix, for that, especially in Endwalker, in that regards. Dark Knight, having Salted Earth being, just boom, it's good to go. Felt really natural. It felt really natural because honestly, I've always used that as a macro just because it made sense. But also, just kind of an aside, playing around with the control, like the bounds setting for ground targets, felt really good on controller as well. Well, typically I think
like Ninja or
for any of them,
for putting down Sacred Soil, for any of those,
even
that setting, much like don't deposit new gear in Armory, like there are certain settings that are turned off by default. That's a must-have.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, especially as a controller player. But going into Dark Knight, there wasn't anything I felt was like revolutionary, and I don't think Dark Knight needed to be. Like when I compare this to when the Shadowbringers media tour, where I came out of there feeling a little bit bummed about Warrior, and I stand by how I felt because I didn't main Warrior at all this expansion. I leveled it up and I was like, okay, cool, put the work in, make the controller guide, and then I was like, all right, back to Gunbreaker, back to Dark Knight. Then I was like, yeah, I really enjoyed what I saw with Dark Knight, and I liked its extension and the abilities and some of the minor adjustments, but Dark Knight didn't, I think, need that much work, and so it just got a couple of new abilities, and I love that it can now, outside of the Blackest Night, can now actually shield, and with this like a stacking ability, you get 2 charges, like shield something else, yourself or another. And honestly, I thought that was a real nice trick, because it feels like when you look at Warrior being very beastly, Dark Knight has a little bit more magical shielding, which I appreciated thematically.
It felt good. It felt quality of life. It felt right. It felt like my buddy has been hitting the gym. My buddy was doing his thing.
Yeah.
And felt like my Salted Earth was putting down something meaningful. And it felt like more than just, I need to put down a little stage that I can dance on. It felt like I was doing something. Salted Earth sometimes feels like I'm just, I need to put that down, and it needs to go on my target, and I need to stand in it with my target. We need to dance around in our little red glow. And it's like, no, I'm putting this down because it's going to wreck you. Because there's another component where you press it again and it does a thing. It felt right. I just kind of like White Mage. It felt like you were in a good spot, so you stayed in a good spot. Excited. I think the new level 90 abilities for both jobs are exciting, but I think it's mostly just you were playing a job that was really good, and you're going to get rewarded for continuing to play a job that was in a good spot, as opposed to some of the jobs that feel starkly different, like Black Mage, like Summoner. Like Black Mage actually, to me, felt noticeably different in a big way, considering I don't think it received as many changes on paper as Summoner. But Dark Knight really just feels like, I think the 2 bigger changes were Paladin and Warrior Hero. And they didn't receive that many changes if you were to list them out, but it feels pretty stark when you're trying to get some semblance of a rotation up.
Yeah.
I think Paladin feels more in line with tanks. There was something weird before about Paladin, in my opinion, that felt a little bit like, okay, I'm going to do my tank physical combo. Oh, and then I got to do this like caster thing for a little bit, and then I'll come back. That felt kind of odd.
Yeah.
And now the magical side, like, I'm like, no, I'm gonna do my physical thing, and then I'm gonna drop a whole bunch of swords on your face, and I'm gonna go back to beating you up. And that feels more in line.
Yeah, absolutely. All in all, I think the tanks are in a really good position, building up off of the positive tank changes that we saw in Shadowbringers, and then essentially like with more range. Yes, some things have kind of gotten normalized across the tanks, but at the end of the day, I'm really excited to see and feel how tanking is. And I think honestly, when I look at it, and when I look at what my Endwalker goals are, it's like now I feel with 4 tanks, I'm getting close, like on all of them. So it's not like that big of a goal, but to finish off the various different tank mounts because as I've jumped around expansion to expansion, I've done some of the content. So I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, I'm halfway here on this one, or I'm, another halfway here on that one, and just kind of focus down, and maybe I'll be able to get those tank mounts finished off in Endwalker and feel really proud of that accomplishment. But honestly, I can tell you, Hrothgar looked incredible in any tank gear that was available.
Like, do you have any questions about tanks? Do you have anything that still feels unanswered?
No, I don't. Honestly, the only, I'd still like to see, like with Paladin, I'd like to see like Atonement upgrade in like one of their abilities, because you have to use your combo to open up Atonement. And so now Atonement's just this extra ability that's kind of floating out there, and I have to figure, I'm going to work on it. Hopefully maybe I can find a solution that makes sense and is comfortable without dropping Atonements, because it's awesome. But at the end of the day, like, I kind of just wish, like, okay, yeah, that ability, your regular fast blade just turned into Atonement on that, so you could just pop those off and make that one button as an upgradable button. That's what I was hoping for. I didn't get that. That's okay. But that's one of the minor changes that I had. It had as a gripe within Shadowbringers and Paladin. It was a great tank, and then all of a sudden, like, I just like it was functional, but I personally wouldn't have taken my build into an ultimate raid, right? Like, I still, like, oh my gosh, like movement, when you got to move, and what they showed us with movement, makes me think I'm going to be looking at Warrior, going to be looking at Dark Knight, and going to be looking at Gunbreaker to see what takes it. And yes, it looks impressive. Paladin, when you're doing your competitor combo, mwah, and you see that some of that footage, and it's amazing. Well, any thoughts for me? I know that's just
no. I still have questions about tank stance. Just like I felt I was bummed when they added tank stance that it kind of flattened that side of tanks. I think overall the rotations feel very on point this time. I still have questions about like what it's going to feel like as far as establishing enmity. Do they feel tanky? Do they feel mitigation? We're not going to feel that, only having seen one leveling dungeon and a hunt.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that yet. A lot of that will come down to what does Pandemonium, what does Mist of the Realm, what do the trials, what do those feel like? And that's a feeling, right? And so I think tank stance in general felt like, oh, that's just a thing I have to turn on. Until we got to like, I would say like E12S is the first content where I really felt like, okay, enmity is a thing I'm managing. Everything up until then, it was like, yeah, I get it. I'm in front. E12S, was the first time that I really felt like as a tank, it's like, okay, I really need to be paying attention to this. My cooldowns are incredibly important that I'm using the right ones at the right time. It feels like I'm tanking.
Yeah.
And so I hope we're able to get that sooner. I will say the dungeon felt like it hit a lot harder. So that may be the answer to that. Like the answer might not be Jack with tank stance. The answer might be call for mitigation more, and then I'm not worried about enmity. Because what makes a tank not a melee DPS is both mitigation and enmity. And so if I'm complaining about enmity not feeling like a bigger piece of things, maybe the answer is just dial up mitigation. And they talked about in the live letter, they're going to be better about rewarding proper mitigation. And so like maybe that's the thing I'm not feeling in just leveling content is, and with somebody who self-admittedly was not doing my mitigation super optimally in this dungeon because we were under such a time crunch. But that's my like open-ended concern, that the answer is time.
That's it for me. Why don't you take us out?
So I don't know how many more we're going to get to tonight. We are fresh off of this. I look forward to talking about these, but they're all going live today for you guys. And we want to talk about healers. We want to talk about casters. I got to deal with melee and physical ranged because I moved very, very rapidly, and Brian moved much more slowly and thoroughly. And we've got a lot of thoughts coming out across Gaming Kinda, Work to Game, and Ginger Prime. And I will be live over on Twitch through all of this. So come enjoy the month between when this goes live today, October 13th, and November 19th, when I assume you've all pre-ordered and are going to be joining us in Endwalker.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.